of the Cattle USA Daily Podcast. Today, we are bringing you guys your market report with Dan Gerhold and the Cattle USA Insurance team. Today, we are talking some pretty big news has hit the cattle industry. The border is opening back up, at least for a short period of time, and that is definitely affecting our cattle markets. We also have had the rumor mill is rumor milling. Once again, we had a week off last week and it's back to it. So we discussed some of that. We are discussing what is happening with managed money and everything else that is affecting the cattle market right now, and that is going to continue to affect the cattle market over the continuation of the dog days of summer. It is July 4th week, which we all know is a turning point in just the vibes of summer, and we're about to hit those dog days. And so what does that mean for the cattle market going forward for the next couple months? We are discussing all of that in today's episode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into this episode with Dan. Hey.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great.
I love the shirt.
You haven't seen the best part yet.
Oh my God. Did you just order these in bulk?
Oh, yeah. I went straight to China. I flew over there and picked out a bunch of them. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So festive. I
Absolutely.
love it. I love it.
It's America.
You gotta be.
Best week of the year, right?
Honestly, arguably, yeah. And it's cooled down here in Kansas, so I would argue that it has been the best week so far. So
yeah, it's gonna be good.
I love it.
It's gonna be good.
Love it. You obviously don't have a dog that has insane anxiety, though, and like hates fireworks, because I loved 4th of July until having a dog that you have to drug for the entire week leading up to.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's not so fun. It's not so fun then.
I think mine enjoys it, but we don't drug her. We just make her ride it out.
There you go. I love it. I love it.
Got big
plans? What are your plans for the weekend?
I am getting ready to go to the lake.
Nice.
Spend a little time with the family.
Nice.
R&R.
Love it.
Much needed. You?
I love it. We don't have any crazy plans. We have Mr. Anxiety over here, and so we don't travel for the 4th typically. So unfortunately, we'll be home, but we're going to host some friends and do some things around here and stuff. So we'll have fun nonetheless. Our neighborhood always does. The neighborhood just north of us does a pretty big fireworks show. So we just go sit off our back porch and let them be the pyros for the day. So
Perfect.
Yes. Yep. We have a really, really big fireworks show in a town called Wamego here in Kansas. It's like the biggest one in the state. And Wamego is a small town. Like it's maybe 2,000, 3,000 people, maybe. And it does not have the infrastructure for the thousands of people that come to this fireworks show. So it's always like such a debacle on the 4th for the fireworks show in Wamego because we don't live very far from there, and so the traffic is always crazy backed up. But we can see the fireworks from our house too, just a little bit. So I'm like, it's great because we get to reap all the benefits without having to deal with the traffic. So
absolutely. Good.
Yes.
No, that's a big plus. Yeah, don't have to fight the crowds.
Yeah, I wish we were spending it on the lake though. We have a boat and all of that jazz, but my family does not like spending 4th of July on the lake just because of how busy it is. Yeah, because of how busy it is. It gives my stepdad insurmountable amounts of anxiety, like taking the boat out on the 4th of July weekend. He hates Memorial Day weekend and he hates the 4th of July weekend just because of how crowded it is with people. Oh my gosh. If it was just my mom and I, we could totally do it. But like putting the boat in and out and all of that, it's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much
I don't blame him there.
All right. What's happening in the markets? What's going on in the world of all of that jazz?
A couple of weeks ago, Lauren, I think we did a podcast on rumors and how there was more and more of them coming all the time, and it seems like a common theme anymore is let's see which rumor we can throw at the wall and make it stick. Last week, I believe it was the Amarillo, Texas Tyson strike. Market sold off a little ahead of time, expecting a strike. And then as they talked about getting a deal and it looked like it was going to happen, they put some money back on the market. And lo and behold, Monday afternoon, the USDA releases a report that they're going to open the border in stages. So once again, yesterday, the market decides it's going to sell off again. You had a big grain report on Monday, and you had month end and quarter end. So those are all factors as well. But by and large, everything's trading this Mexico border up until, we'll see at 8:30 this morning what it starts trading. But it sounds like they're going to open 5 of the 7, 8 ports, I believe, for entry. It's going to be phased in over a period of time. July has 3 of them, and then finish up the last 2 in August and September. I am a little bit nervous that there is a pile of feeder cattle waiting to get in here because we are the market for those cattle. I do expect them to be bigger than normal. So what that looks like is if we're going to throw those cattle on feed, and let's say we get everything open and we're back to roughly 75% of our normal imports for the next 2 months. We're going to start adding inventory to that late December, January, February, March market is what you're looking at. So by and large, I don't think those imports are going to affect us up front in the fat cattle market. I think we're going to go back to trading cash here pretty quick once we get past this holiday shortened week, with lower kills because of that. Once we get past the thin trade on the board, a lot of these traders take off for the weekend early. So trading can get pretty thin here today and tomorrow. But we'll see what happens. It looks like cash has an opportunity to turn the corner and maybe steady off and possibly go higher. These feed yards know that we still have the leverage. Even though we got into some calf kill, we still got the leverage. Boxes are high. Kill numbers aren't where I want to see them, but that's okay. The cattle aren't there to kill, so you're not going to get those kill numbers. By and large, like I said, I told you last week, we get past 4th of July, things can usually turn and start looking a touch better. So optimistic on that front. Feeder cattle make me nervous though, Lauren. I won't lie. They have been extremely overvalued compared to deferred futures. Not uncommon for this time of year because a lot of people like betting on the come for the winter fat cattle market. But long story short is, as I mentioned, there's a pile of feeder cattle waiting to cross the border. So before we step into that, let's also look at what's the rainfall been across the grass regions. So those guys that turned out yearlings this spring, when do they plan to come off? We always have to look at pasture conditions. We always have, we're always talking to guys, hey, it's getting rain the last couple weeks. Everybody, for the most part, has got a lot of rain. So what does that mean? We're going to leave those cattle out there, make them bigger this year. With the price of those calves being so high, it's full-blown makes sense. The market's telling you to do it. Make your yearlings bigger instead of dumping early and turning around and having to buy back higher. So my personal prediction is we're going to leave those grass yearlings out there. We're not going to be pulling them off in July or August like, we may have if it would have dried out. So let's start looking till late August, September, October when we're going to see that big run of those yearlings. In the meantime, before they announced this Mexican border, I was thinking, okay, feeders are going to stay stupid high here for July, August because of that. But now that they're opening that border here, now we have some ample supplies to start feeding that pipeline, especially in the south. So there's always that shift. You can load cattle on trucks and ship them all the way across the country, not a big deal. There was a shift when they shut down that border that, hey, all those southern yards who wanted to stay full, a lot of those guys shifted east. So anybody feeding those eastern feeders, they all of a sudden had to shift too because their prices went high. We saw a really narrow spread between the eastern feeders and the western feeders as far as cash goes. That was abnormally narrow because of those southern yards going out there and trying to capture that inventory. So now that you're bringing those Mexicans back into the picture, maybe those southern yards back off the east a little bit. Maybe they back off the north, out of Kansas. You got Flint Hill cattle coming off here any day. So, you're going to see a shift in those yearlings now where they're coming from, where guys are going. As always, the north is going to stay high just because it's northern cattle feeders spend a lot of money on feeders. So, but by and large, you're going to see a shift. So if we're starting to fill that summer hole I was looking for on those yearling feeders, now all of a sudden we've got some risk in this feeder cattle market. Let's combine that with the third prong, corn. If whoever's listening to this, they might be rolling their eyes because they look out their back door and they see corn is phenomenal everywhere. like I said, everybody got some rains. Corn market's looking like it should go lower just on the fundamentals of we're going to make a very large crop as of right now. It's looking good. But let's not forget, counter-seasonal sell-offs can often lead to counter-seasonal rallies. So if we put a bottom in this corn market, what do the funds do with their managed money position in feeder cattle? I think they're over half of the total trading in the feeder cattle market right now. So if they decide they're going to flip their position in the corn, they're probably not going to hold on to that long position in the feeder cattle at the same time. So we could see them pull out of that feeder position. At the same time, we could see corn start to bottom. Maybe we see feeders, take a little break, take a breath of air. At the same time, do I think we're going back to 275 in the next 2 months? No. I'm looking for this market to possibly correct. We already corrected down close to $3. If it gets much worse, we're looking at 290. I think there was a gap down there at like 284 or something would be a target. It's on my mind, but by and large, if we're still looking for fat cattle to rally over the next 2 to 3 months, we're probably going to see feeder cattle stay high. So, and when I say you could see a counter seasonal rally in corn, I'm not talking about $1 or $2 by any means, 40, 50 cents. And by and large, that's probably not going to affect the feed yard's willingness to buy corn or buy feeder cattle. They're still going to be interested. A cattle feeder is going to feed just as much as a farmer is going to farm. So those are kind of the things I'm looking for right now. Hog market kind of taking it on the chin here towards the end of last week and this week. Had a hogs and pigs report. But overall, I think, choice box beef up at 390. I think that's going to stabilize our pork cutout here pretty quick. So we get past this fourth, I think we get into more seasonal trading, dog days of summer, people staying inside, cooking burger, cooking cheap food to get through the rest of the summer here. And yeah.
Does the hog market get affected much by the border opening back up?
By and large, no. No.
Okay.
No. It's we import a lot of feeder pigs out of Canada, some fat hogs.
Yeah, that's
too.
what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, last I heard, I think last week we started feuding with Canada again over some tariffs on tax. So let's not discount that either. That's coming up here this month is tariff deadlines, and it sounds like we're going to play some hardball, at least for now. That could be bearish to this market as well. We'll see what equities do if they're going to affect cattle or not. But all this stuff, there's a lot of geopolitical risk in this market right now. I think probably more of that than financial risk from equities just selling off. I mean, those charts look phenomenal, making new all-time highs here this week. So it's just we've got a lot of risk around the corner, plain and simple, caused by the government, and we're not immune to that risk. So that's something we need to keep our eye on.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's great, but it also sucks in a lot of ways. That, like, unfortunately, there's a lot of scenarios that are out of our hands and not even a part of the weather or anything like that are just up to the odds. This is truly just a devise of, unfortunately, government decisions and things like that we can't control. The feeder market and the border opening back up overall is a great thing for our cattle industry. Like we need Mexican feeders.
Yes.
We need them. We rely on them for our supply and demand structure that we have here in the States. And so it's important that it opens back up. But I know a lot of producers are worried about what that means and the potential possibility for screwworm coming and everything that goes along with that. But I think it's one of those scenarios where we have to play the risk and reward standpoint of there's only so long that we can push those feeders off. I mean, they could have kept the Mexican border closed for many more months. But when they closed it, they said, hey, this is probably going to be an open and closed scenario.
Yep.
We're going to open it. We're going to close it. We're going to open it. We're going to close it as that risk continues to get higher than the reward would be. And right now we're at a point where, like you said, we've had some feeders getting fat down in Mexico and they're coming in a lot heavier than they typically would. And so they're probably all lining up right now, knocking on the door like, we're ready. As soon as the gates go down, we're barreling in. Because we don't know how long it's going to stay open for either.
Exactly.
So it's playing that balance, which is difficult.
Yep. Yeah, and given where we are in the cattle cycle with our numbers being low like they are, yeah, everybody wants to see our cow herd increase, and we want to build more demand so we can build back this herd. But at the same time, let's not discount the fact that right now we're at 60, 70-year lows on our cow numbers. We need those feeder cattle right now. Yes, it would affect our markets more. It's 1.2 to 1.4 million head a year, depending on the year. So yeah, it's going to put a little pressure on us until that equilibrium balances out. But long story short is we don't want to run this cattle market so high that we price the consumer out. We don't want to lose that demand. If we don't have those feeder cattle at a time and period where we have really no low numbers, we're going to eventually do that. You price out that demand, you're going to price out a packet plant. It's just a trickle down chain of events, and we don't want to see that. So we need to get that border back open so we can keep all those plants down south online and move on and keep the consumer eating beef every day.
Yeah, and I think the biggest concern with those southern plants is statistically, when we see a plant close, we don't see that plant open back up. And so it's one of those situations and scenarios where we need to fix this now before it becomes an issue that is irreversible, because opening a plant back up once it closes, we don't see that happening
It's
anymore.
rare. Yep. It
Yeah.
is rare. Your least efficient plants close first, and your least profitable, of course, goes along with that. And you don't want to do that. I've got a plant about 30 miles from my house. I think it's been open and closed 3 times. And every day with this market like this, I know they're hurting. It's not a big plant. It's not efficient plant, but it worries me we're going to see a fourth time where they shut it down. You don't want to see any of those plants shut down, especially small, large, it doesn't matter. You want to keep that kill capacity, because at the end of the day, kill capacity is what matters most to the feed yards, that matters most to the backgrounder, that matters most to the cow-calf guy. End of the day, we need to get the border open. I do think we need to control that screwworm as well. We're 6 months away from having the potential outbreak here slow down. The closer we get to winter, we can control it a little bit better. And it sounds like the sterile fly program is ramping up. So I'm optimistic. I just don't want to, like I said, managed money is holding a big position in feeder cattle. They get news like that, they're going to back out of a few contracts. If the feeder cattle index stays up here, if cash feeders stay up here at these prices, we're seeing, 320s, threes, even the 9 and 10 weight steers are bringing $3, and it's just like, but if those prices stick around, I think the board's going to have to respond and work back higher the deeper we get into summer. So expect some volatility, with that, manage that risk.
1,000%. Any other highs or lows, key points in the market that we need to touch on today?
I'm not sure. I think we covered a lot pretty quick there.
Okay. Yep, I agree.
We get past the 4th of July. Packers are going to be buying for a full kill week next week with boxes where they are. It's pretty normal for them to ramp their kills up as soon as they get profitable. I'd like to see that stay that way. I want to see them make about $5 a head so that they speed that chain up.
Yep.
But it's the dog days of summer, so this is where they make their hay. They really make money on these. As we get deeper into these new crop calves, it can improve. So if we can hold this cutout level up above this 380 all the way through summer, I think you're going to support this kill number here, maybe move it a touch higher. And then as we get deeper into August, September, October, that's where I really start getting bullish on the supply side. So I'm very, very optimistic. I just hope something doesn't wreck us before we can enjoy that short supply out there.
That is the key. That is the key, that let's keep the rumors to a minimum. Let's keep everything else. Just, we're going into the dog days of summer, like you said. Let's just, maybe ride this wave out instead of, deciding it needs to be a roller coaster summer. We can just ride the wave and make our way into the fall and say we survived and call it a day type of situation. So, No, I agree 100% on all that.
Let's turn July 4th back into a steak holiday. I mean, I understand it's hot dogs and hamburgers, but let's turn it around. Ribeyes have been softening in price, so let's turn that right around and throw steaks back on the grill. Let's go.
Hey, We're going to throw some steaks on the grill around here, but we're not really great to look at because we just have a freezer full of beef. So we're not the ones going to the store and buying the beef. But we can at least encourage people and our consumers to put some steak back on the grill.
Absolutely.
For the 4th. Hey, it's America's birthday. We should be celebrating to the nines.
Absolutely.
Like,
superfood.
Come on, y'all.
Let's
Come
go.
on. Let's get some steak on there. Let's get some prime rib. Let's smoke a brisket.
Yep.
Go crazy. Go crazy.
Yep.
Get some of those
Absolutely.
get some of those more high quality cuts on there.
Love it. I agree.
Oh, perfect. Well, Dan, as always, thank you so much for your time today. To all of our listeners out there, make sure, like Dan was saying, it is going to be a volatile market going into these dog days of summer. Make sure you check out our show notes where we have our Cattle USA insurance link, where we partner with Dan and his team to provide you guys some great LRP rates and everything like that. So make sure you go check that out. Get a hold of Dan and his team and everyone else at the Cattle USA insurance team, and we'll get you hooked up where you need to be. As always, thank you so much for listening. We hope you guys have an amazing 4th of July weekend, and we'll catch y'all next week on another episode. Have a good one, y'all.